The story begins in a quiet village, where we see a woman named Dani inside her house. Dani is busy repairing the entire house, which is old and requires significant work. Her husband, Ted, is a psychiatrist. The couple recently moved into this house, located in a remote area with poor network connectivity. Dani has been working tirelessly for several days to fix up the place. One day, Dani discovers a spot in the house where the network connection is strong. She takes the opportunity to call Ted, sharing a brief conversation with him because she feels bored and lonely. During their talk, Ted informs her that he needs to stay overnight at the hospital due to some work. This means Dani will have to spend the night alone in the house. As the evening approaches, Dani sets up a tent near the door of the house to sleep. It grows late into the night, and suddenly a stranger appears at her door. The man begins peeping through the window and talks to Dani, warning her of imminent danger. He claims that someone has entered the house with the intent to kill her and urges her to open the door for her own safety. Terrified and unsure, Dani refuses to open the door, as it would be unwise to trust a stranger under such circumstances. The man, who has a fake eye, speaks in a kind and concerned tone, giving the impression that he genuinely cares about her safety. He insists that she is in danger and advises her to call the police if she doesn't trust him. Dani, though afraid, listens to him from near the door. Whether she decides to open the door or not is left unclear. The scene abruptly shifts, showing the fake-eyed stranger being brutally killed by an unknown force. Shortly after, it is revealed that Dani has also been murdered in a similarly horrific manner. The stranger's warnings about the danger prove to be true. A few months pass, and the narrative picks up with Ted visiting a shop that specializes in selling old and rare items. The shop is run by Darcy, Dani's twin sister. Darcy has been blind since childhood but possesses unique psychic abilities that allow her to perceive and interact with things beyond normal human understanding, such as spirits and magical phenomena. Darcy is deeply grieved by her sister Dani's untimely death. Ted frequently visits Darcy, though he remains skeptical of her claims about paranormal phenomena. During one of his visits, Darcy holds a small bell in her hand and explains to Ted that it is connected to the life of a boy who was murdered. She says she can sense the boy's presence through the bell. Ted has brought an item that Darcy had requested, a handkerchief belonging to the fake-eyed man. Darcy intends to use this handkerchief to uncover the truth about why the man killed Dani and what his thoughts and motivations were at the time of the murder. In the same way, Darcy discovered that Ted had started a relationship with another girl, someone he planned to marry soon, even though Dani had died not long ago. Darcy felt bad about this but didn't let it show. Ted explained to Darcy that this woman had been his friend before, but now because he needed support, they had entered into a relationship and decided to get married. She also worked at their hospital. After saying this, he left, but it became clear that the reason for Ted's hospital stay that night was to be with his friend. This was the same night Dani had to spend alone, which meant Ted was already cheating on her. Later in the evening, Darcy arrived at her house. She brought with her the handkerchief from the patient with the fake eye. She placed the handkerchief on the table, put something inside it, and removed her gloves. As she touched the handkerchief, she saw something shocking that she had not expected. She became frightened, and tears filled her eyes. Darcy then went to a storeroom where she kept a large wooden box. She examined it carefully before sitting next to it. This room contained many strange objects, all of which were connected to someone who was no longer alive, someone Darcy could still feel. We then see that Ted had woken up from sleep and was about to leave for the hospital, but his friend stopped him. She began showing him pictures on a camera, which was actually Dani's camera that Ted's friend had. The camera was set up to take pictures on its own. She showed Ted a photo that had been taken suddenly, one in which there was a shadow of Dani, even though she had been dead for a long time. Ted brushed it off, but his friend found it strange. Now Ted had to do his night duties, which meant his friend would have to stay alone in the house. She was scared, as it was the same house where Dani had died. Ted reassured her, telling her it was only a few more days until his shift would change, and she'd have to manage by then. His friend responded that she'd stay at her own house until Ted's duty changed, and then she would return. Ted agreed to this. His friend was set to leave today. Before Ted left for work, she told him that last night, Darcy had sent a strange gift. It was the same wooden box, which surprised both of them. They were even more surprised when they discovered Darcy was standing outside. Since no one had invited her, she had come on her own and planned to stay for 2 days. Ted's friend was uninterested in her uninvited visit, but Ted couldn't refuse her. Now, neither Ted nor his friend would be at home, but Darcy insisted on staying. Now Darcy shows them the wooden box gift, which was truly strange because inside it was a large wooden statue. Ted's friend felt very uncomfortable upon seeing it. Ted then explained to her that when Darcy leaves, he would remove the statue, but until then, he asked her to bear it for him. After that, Ted left. A while later, Ted's friend was about to leave as well, but she realized that her keys were lost. She searched for them everywhere, but couldn't find them. Darcy, however, was sitting there very calmly, as if she already knew what was going to happen. When Ted's friend couldn't find the keys, Darcy asked her, "Aren't you leaving now?" Ted's friend replied, "No, I have to stay in the house." Later, Ted's friend returned and saw that the large wooden statue from the box was now sitting on the dining table. Ted's friend felt uneasy and asked Darcy, "Did you bring it out?" Darcy gave a strange answer, "No." Then how did it get out, she wondered. Ted's friend thought about it, but then decided to ignore it. She went to bring food for Darcy, and they talked for a while. Ted's friend asked Darcy about her work, and when Darcy explained, Ted's friend secretly laughed. She thought that Darcy believed in witchcraft, like a witch. Darcy then asked, "How do you feel in this house?" Ted's friend replied that she didn't feel very good, especially considering what had happened to Dani. It left her even more confused. Darcy asked, "If a stranger asked you to open the door, would you open it?" Ted's friend replied, "No, because I'm not that foolish." Hearing this, Darcy became angry. "My sister wasn't a fool, and she didn't open the door," she said. It wasn't the patient with a fake eye, but someone else who killed her. Ted's friend was stunned and asked, "If a madman like him didn't kill her, then who did?" Darcy responded, "A male nurse who works at the same hospital as Ted, and the man with the fake eye is a patient there." Ted's friend felt very strange after hearing this, but then we see a flashback to that night. We find out that Dani really did not open the door, and the man with the fake eye had come to help her. At that moment, someone had entered the house as he had said. The intruder was actually a man wearing a mask, who had mercilessly killed Dani. After a while, Ted's friend called him and said, "This Darcy is very strange. She talks oddly. She claims that Dani was not killed by the man with the fake eye, but by a nurse who works with you at the hospital, and I don't feel good with her. I couldn't even go to my house. The car keys are lost, and I think she's hiding them somewhere." Ted calmed her down and told her to lock the door to her room and go to sleep. She went to her room, but she couldn't sleep. She came down and saw that Darcy was sitting on the sofa and sleeping, and now she quietly goes to the wooden statue to check it. So that she can see what secret is hidden in it, there were 5 holes in the statue's head when Ted's friend checked it. One of them was Dani, and Darcy's picture came out. One had a tooth and one had a small blood bottle. But in the meantime, Darcy's eyes opened, and she said in anger that put everything back. Ted's friend puts those things back in the statue's head, and after she left, Darcy spends the whole night in front of the statue, but Ted's friend was scared. Now to pass the time, she starts watching the video recorded by her in Dani's camera, where she saw a scary face behind Dani, seeing which she was so scared that the camera falls off her hand. When she saw that Dani's ghost is in a corner of the room, which scares her. In the meantime, she finds her keys and she takes the car and leaves from here. Now we see the scene of the hospital, where Ted and Dani's murderer, that is the nurse, have a friendship. Both are talking to each other. Now after coming home, Ted sees that his friend is not here, and Darcy is sitting sad on the table. When Ted asks her about his friend, she replies that she has run away. "I wanted her to see your real face, that you are such a disgusting person, but my sister's ghost scared her and she left. I really know that you are the person who has killed my sister because you fell in love with your friend. You just wanted to steal my sister's wealth, which that poor girl had already given you. I kept thinking that some crazy person has killed her, and I took revenge from that fake patient, but he really wanted to help my sister, and you are her real killer. And yes, I know that now you will send someone here so that he can kill me, but it would be better if you send that murderer, that is the nurse." After listening to all this, Ted says, "How can you even think like this? And how did all these things come to your mind? If you doubt me, then let's go to that detective who is working on Dani's case." But Darcy still doesn't believe him. Ted says, "Okay, take this. I am keeping my phone here, and I'm going to the detective. I will tell him to call you and tell you whatever call comes, you pick it up." Saying this, he leaves, and now we see that scene from the past. Ted was sitting next to the same killer nurse, making a plan to kill Dani. Yes, Darcy was absolutely right. Ted had fallen in love with his friend, and he wanted to get Dani's property. He only cared about money. He didn't love Dani. At his behest, the nurse killed Dani because the real psycho was the one who enjoyed killing people. But the question arises, what about the man with the fake eye in all this? The truth is that although he wasn't mentally well, he was a good man at heart and wasn't a murderer. He had to listen to Ted and the nurse, so that night he went to save Dani. However, Dani didn't believe him and was killed. Because the man was suspicious, Darcy killed him. That's why she said she took revenge on that man. Then we see that Ted had made a plan to kill Darcy as well. Before leaving, he took out a tile from the floor so that when she came to pick up the phone, she would fall. He had also given the task to the nurse to kill Dani's sister, Darcy. The nurse agreed to this task and happily left for his house. Ted called the number of the hospital on the house phone, and as soon as Darcy went to pick up the phone, she fell according to the plan. When the nurse arrived, he first looked at the wooden statue and then at Darcy, who was badly injured. She had a deep head injury, and because of the heavy blood loss, she died soon. But here comes a new twist. Darcy, fully convinced of ritual magic, believed that her death would complete a ritual. She already knew her death was coming, so she didn't even try to save herself on purpose. As soon as she died, the wooden statue suddenly came to life, and it followed the nurse, attacking him. The nurse managed to escape with his life and ran away, but suddenly fainted. When he woke up, he found himself tied to a hospital bed, and Ted was standing in front of him. Ted blamed the nurse for Darcy's death, and the nurse began to beg for his life, promising not to tell anyone anything. Ted responded, "No, I can't make such a foolish mistake. If I let you go, the suspicion will fall on me. Why couldn't I recognize you for the psycho you are? But if I don't let you go, I'll be safe. Who would believe you, that a wooden puppet came to life and attacked you?" This shows that Ted was a very selfish and deceitful person who used people very cleverly. He manipulated almost everyone, even his wife. Darcy could have killed the nurse, but she didn't want to let him go so easily. In fact, she wanted to torture him, just like he killed Dani and tortured many others. Also, when he was a nurse, he had done injustice to many people. A patient then came to take revenge on the nurse, biting his finger and making him suffer greatly. After this, we see Ted looking very worried coming home. He notices the bell that Darcy had mentioned in her story. He rings the bell, trying to call the soul of the boy it was connected to. But nothing strange happens. This makes Ted think that maybe there's no such thing as the supernatural, and that Darcy had been faking everything. He also realizes that his friend had left him. In this way, Darcy's revenge on her sister was complete, as Ted's entire life had been ruined. Then, in a shocking turn, the soul of the boy the bell was attached to appeared, standing with Ted, signaling that Ted, too, was not going to survive.